Watch what happened when my brother claimed my house at dinner. It left him in shock forever. The air crackled with tension as Greg leaned back in his chair, an odd smile curling his lips. His eyes glinted mischievously, like a cat toying with a mouse. "I declare this house mine," he said, his voice ringing out like a gunshot at a shooting range. A silence fell, icy and heavy, as if time itself had stopped. Nobody knew if he was joking or serious, and that uncertainty sent shivers racing down everyone's spine. This was not a playful family dinner anymore. It had morphed into something sinister, something eerie. Each plate was a battlefield, the food transformed into potential weapons. The clinking of silverware felt like a ticking bomb, each tick sending our hearts into a wild race. Mom's expression warped from confusion to disbelief, her hands trembling as she gripped her glass tighter. "Greg, this isn't funny," she exclaimed, but her voice was swallowed by the thick atmosphere. Then there was the second strange element. The very house seemed to react to Greg's claim. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and something's just off? Like the walls were listening, the shadowy corners nodding in agreement with his outlandish proclamation. The lights flickered overhead. Was it a power surge, or some strange energy responding to Greg's words? People exchanged glances, pooling anxiety in the depths of their eyes. As the night dragged on, unease ticked higher. Greg leaned forward, almost conspiratorial, as if he were revealing some grand secret. "You don't even realize what's lurking in the shadows, do you?" His voice dropped to a whisper, sending fresh chills dancing down my spine. The way he said it, the sheer certainty, felt like a thunderstorm brewing on the horizon. I watched his hands fidget, twisting a napkin like it was a lifeline. What was going on in that head of his? Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. A gust of wind rattled the windows, and for the briefest moment, I thought I saw a figure dart by something unnatural, something out of place. I glanced at Greg, and there it was again, his smile unwavering, the kind that gave me nightmares. Had he invited something sinister into our home? The room felt smaller now, closing in like a vice. I could barely breathe, the weight of his words bound me in dread. What had once been our family dinner was unraveling into chaos. Our new normal twisted by bizarre claims, and the looming threat of something I couldn't comprehend. What was he really after? And then I realized, claiming the house was only the beginning. As the lights flickered again, shadows danced on the walls, hinting at secrets we were not ready to face. In that moment I knew this night would change us forever. The moment was fractured as the unpredictable shadows swallowed up my thoughts. A sudden crash echoed from the kitchen, shattering the silence. Heart racing, I shot a glance toward the door, where the darkness pooled. What was lurking out there? Greg's smile remained fixed, but a twitch of uncertainty flickered in his eyes. I could taste the panic in the air, thick and salty. My mom, now pale as a ghost, seemed rooted in place, eyes wide like saucers. I'd never seen her so afraid. "I'll check it out," I found myself saying, though every fiber in my being screamed against it. Steeling myself, I stood, legs trembling. Each step toward the kitchen felt like a deliberate walk to my doom. I braced for what awaited. The harsh bulbs above flickered again, throwing jagged shadows across the tiled floor. I reached the threshold of the kitchen, the atmosphere heavy with an unsettling noise, a low, almost inaudible hum that vibrated against my skin. Suddenly a loud clatter rang out. I jumped back, hand flying to my chest. My heart thundered, pounding against my ribs. Stepping cautiously inside, I flicked the light switch, but the room remained dim. The only illumination came from the waning daylight seeping through the curtains. What greeted me took my breath away. The cabinet stood ajar, and plates lay shattered on the floor like confetti from a cursed celebration. But that wasn't the worst part. No, there was something else. The refrigerator stood wide open, its contents strewn about. But even worse, something small and dark darted to the back of the appliance. My mind raced. Was it a rat, or something more sinister? I hesitated, then backed away slowly, the feeling of eyes boring into me dripping with dread. I turned to leave, only to collide with Greg's solid frame. Startled, I jolted back, my pulse racing as my eyes searched his. His expression had shifted, the mischievous glint now replaced by something more serious. "Did you see it?" he asked, breathless. "See what?" I managed to reply, too shaken to mask my fear. "The thing in the kitchen. It's here because of me. I made a promise." His voice dipped, transforming from playful to eerie in a heartbeat. "Promise? What are you talking about? Greg, this isnn't a game." My voice cracked as he stepped closer, an intensity in his gaze that sent chills racing down my spine. "You don't understand. There are forces in this house that protect us or curse us. You need to decide what you believe because it's too late to back out now." A loud thump echoed from behind me and I spun, breath hitching in my throat. The darkness seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like a wounded beast. My body froze as I felt it, a cold rush of air sweeping past, as if the house itself were exhaling. Then a whisper. A chilling voice, soft yet pronounced. "Leave." My instincts kicked in, and I bolted back toward the dining room. The others were huddled together, panic etched on their faces. "We should get out of here," I shouted, but my words fell like stones in the choking silence. "Get out?" Greg laughed. "You don't even know why the house wants you here. You think the danger is outside? It's right beneath our feet." His smile returned, but this time it felt wicked, a mask to his madness. Just then the lights flickered violently, and the floor trembled beneath me. This house, once a fortress of warmth and safety, had turned into a prison. The shadows pulsed, alive with unresolved tension. "Mom, we need to go." But before she could respond, another crash resounded from deep within the walls, hollow and menacing. Had we awakened something? Or had it always been there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for a moment like this? As dread washed over me, one truth drummed steadily in my ears. Greg's declaration had unleashed something far worse than we'd ever anticipated. The house creaked as if whispering secrets. We were caught in a web of our own making. What would we confront next? Who would stand to face this darkness now looming in our once safe haven? This evening had taken a turn into an abyss, and I was terrified to discover just how deep it truly was. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But as I stood there, paralyzed by fear, an unbearable tension filled the air. The flickering lights stuttered out again, plunging us momentarily into total darkness. The shadows grasped at me with icy fingers, and I could hear Greg's breath hitching as the weight of his words sank in. There was something buried deep in this house, something hidden and angry. My mom's face was ghost white, her lips pressed together in a thin line of fear. I could almost see her trying to reassure herself. She had to believe that everything was okay, that this was just a prank gone wrong, a trick of the light. But every sound, every creak told a different story. Greg took a step forward, his wide eyes scanning the room. "You need to trust me," he whispered urgently. "We need to find it before it finds us." "Find what?" I shot back, shaking my head. "What do you even mean?" But in truth, I was terrified he would answer. Nothing could have prepared me for what came next. The refrigerator door creaked ominously and swung shut, the noise a bone-chilling thud that shook me to my core. The darkness seemed to swell, a living entity pressing against my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. I felt a shudder ripple through the house, and with it, a bone-deep understanding crept in. Whatever we had awakened was angry, and it was hungry. There was a shuffle, low and unsettling, coming from the kitchen. I jumped as the atmosphere thickened, tensing like a bowstring ready to snap. My instincts screamed at me to run farther away, but I forced myself to stay put. "Listen," Greg said, his voice low and steady, a sharp contrast to the chaos around us. "I didn't want to bring this on you, but we need to piece together what happened before. Something from our past is here." His gaze bore into mine, earnest, almost pleading. "When I made that promise, it initiated something." "What promise?" I interrupted, my heart racing at the thought of old family stories made flesh. "What are you talking about?" Greg opened his mouth to respond, but the ground beneath our feet trembled again, the walls now vibrating with an unsettling hum. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and I clenched my fists, determination bubbling beneath the surface. And then it happened. A creaking sound, louder than the rest, reverberated through the house, and we turned as one toward the source. A figure emerged from the shadows, vague and undefined, shrouded in a thick veil of darkness. I felt my heart drop. This was it, the embodiment of our fears. But it was somehow familiar, its presence twisting at my mind. "You shouldn't have come back," it whispered, a cool breeze laced with malevolence. "Stay together," I shouted, grabbing my mom's arm. "We need to." Before I could finish, an icy hand shot out from the figure. It reached for Greg, who stood transfixed, shock painted across his face. "Greg, no!" I cried. But he hardly seemed to hear me, entranced by the entity that had claimed our home. The moment hung suspended, a breathless pause drowned in the shadows. Each second felt like an eternity as fear thundered in my chest. And then, just like that, the figure was gone. Vanished. Leaving only an echo of malice in its wake. "What just happened?" My mom's voice trembled as she pulled me closer. "We've opened a door," Greg said, his tone steadying as clarity flickered back into his eyes. "And now we'll have to confront what comes through it." A newfound sense of dread settled over me. It was far from over. We were merely at the edge of something much darker. Whatever had been unleashed wouldn't rest until it had what it wanted. I felt the weight of the darkness crush down again, settling deep in my bones. What would we do to survive this night? What horrors lay ahead, waiting for us to stumble further into their grasp? I had no answers, only shadows circling closer. The house wasn't just a prison, it was a battleground. The silence that followed was deafening. It pressed down on us, thick and oppressive. I could hardly breathe, the air heavy with the stench of fear and the lingering promise of something sinister lurking in the dark. My heart raced like a wild animal, ready to bolt, but I couldn't move. "Not yet." Greg's face was pale, his jaw clenched tight. "We have to move. There's no time," he urged, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting the figure to materialize again. His voice was losing its steadiness, desperation creeping in. "What do you mean move? Where? We can't just." My words stumbled into silence, caught in the storm of confusion and terror swirling around us. "Downstairs," he finally said, a fierce determination igniting in his eyes. "That's where it all began." My mom's grip tightened around my arm, and the look on her face mirrored my own fear. "We can't go down there," she protested, shaking her head vehemently. "It's too dangerous." But Greg was already leading the way, his resolve unyielding. "It's the only way to end this. We have to face it." With a shaky breath, I followed him, trailing behind as my mother hesitated, caught between instinct and love. I felt a spark of rebellion. Why were we listening to Greg? Why trust him when our home felt like a trap? But even I knew we were running out of options. As we inched down the creaking staircase, each step sent vibrations through the wood, as if the house was groaning under the weight of our fear. The basement door loomed ahead, a gaping maw that drew us closer. The air grew colder, thicker, almost suffocating. "Do you hear that?" I whispered, pausing mid-step. A low, haunting hum resonated from beyond the door, a sound that vibrated through my bones. Greg nodded, looking at me with a mixture of urgency and fear. "It's calling for us." "What's calling?" I snapped, an edge creeping into my voice. "What have you done?" But he didn't reply. Instead, he reached for the handle, his hand trembling. "Greg, wait," I said, panic rising. "What if it's a trap? What if it's waiting for us?" "It's already here," he replied, his voice steady yet filled with dread. "If we don't confront it, it will never let us go." He flung the door open, and we stepped into the inky darkness of the basement. The air was heavy with an electric charge, and I could feel vibrations underfoot that sent shivers down my spine. The shadows danced and flickered, revealing shapes I dared not understand. I blinked, trying to focus, but my thoughts scrambled. "What are we looking for?" I shot out, clutching my mom's arm tighter as we edged forward. "What are we even supposed to find?" "The truth," Greg said, stepping deeper into the abyss. "It's all hidden in the past." Suddenly, the temperature plummeted as if the darkness exhaled a cloud of icy breath. A shadow darted past us, sharp and fast, leaving a trail of whispers that echoed in my mind. "Did you see that?" My voice came out in a rush, fear cracking it. Greg nodded, eyes wide. "It's watching us." "Then let us get out of here. We need a plan," I urged, desperation creeping in again. But as I glanced back to my mom, I saw her expression had shifted. She was staring not at me, but threw me into the dark world where something ancient and terrible lingered. "There's something we need to know," she murmured, her voice distant and fragile. "Something that was buried." Her words hung in the air, thick with implication. The shadows twisted, reaching out with dark fingers, as if craving our secrets, and then from the depths of the basement, a chilling voice seeped through the darkness. "You shouldn't have come back now, you belong to us." My breath caught in my throat. I could hear my own heartbeat, the dread a screaming protest in my mind. What had we stumbled into? And what price would we pay to uncover the truth? As shadows loomed closer, I realized we were running out of time. Little did we know that confronting the darkness would demand more than we were willing to give. What lay beneath wasn't just a reflection of our past. It was a terrifying embodiment of our deepest fears. Would we be brave enough to unearth it? Or would we be consumed in the process? The voice echoed again, chilling the blood in my veins. "Now you belong to us." I felt my mother's grip tighten around my arm, her knuckles pale. The shadows danced around us, flickering with a life of their own. I wanted to turn and flee, but Greg's wild stare held me in place. "We can't run," he urged, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to understand what we're dealing with." "Understand what?" I shot back, hysteria clawing at my chest. "This isn't just a game, Greg. We're facing something real." "Then let us find out what it wants," he snapped, the fear in his voice barely masking his anger. The shadows conspired around us, their whispers curled around my mind like tendrils of smoke. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back. Yet Greg stepped forward, deeper into the darkness, as if propelled by some unseen force. The air thickened, suffocating. I took a step back, dragging my mother with me, but she wouldn't budge. Her gaze remained fixed on something far beyond our reach. "It's calling to me," she murmured, almost dreamlike. "What?" "Mom, no." Panic ignited in my throat. I couldn't lose her, not now. "Stay close," I urged, but she was lost, entranced by the shadows weaving a tapestry of the past. "Let her go, Mia," Greg barked, panic lending urgency to his words. "We need to keep moving." I took a deep breath, fighting down the fear swelling inside me. "Where do we go?" "The old storage room," he replied, pointing towards a dark corner where the shadows shifted ominously. "It's there. What we're looking for, it's there." I hesitated, heart racing. What if we don't find anything? What if this is our only chance? Greg insisted, cutting me off. His desperation clawed at me. We feared the unknown, but what choice did we have left? I nodded, though doubt gnawed at my gut. We pressed forward, creeping deeper into the cold embrace of the basement. With each step, the whispers grew louder, forming a cacophony of fear and anticipation. It was as if the darkness wished to drown us in its secrets. "Look," Greg's voice pierced through the encroaching shadows as he bent down. "Over here." He pulled aside the tattered remnants of old boxes, revealing a small trapdoor hidden beneath dust and cobwebs. My breath caught in my throat. "What's down there?" I asked, heart racing. "The truth," he repeated, eyes wide and shining with the depths of the abyss. But as I glanced at my mother, her face had gone pale, shock evident in her eyes. "Greg, is this really safe?" I asked, uncertain, fear blooming in my chest. But he had already flung the trapdoor open, revealing a set of steep old stairs leading down into darkness. "We have to know," he urged again. "If we don't, we'll never escape this place. The past will repeat itself. Or we'll never come back," I whispered under my breath, my heart pounding. Still, Greg stepped toward the opening, adrenaline fueling his courage, and with a commanding tone said, "We go together." Resolved but trembling, I followed, my pulse pounding in sync with the whispers surrounding us. As we descended the stairs, time seemed to stretch, each heartbeat ominously echoing off the walls. At the bottom, the air turned deliciously chill, an unfamiliar energy crackling in the silence. On the floor, illuminated by the faint glow of something metallic, lay old family photographs, their edges yellowed and frayed. I knelt to examine them, my breath shallow. Each image gripped tight my heart, filled with faces and moments long buried. Then, as I picked one up, a sharp jolt of energy surged through me. A vision flashed. I saw a scene that replayed in my mind like a movie. A family reunion decades ago, a storm brewing outside, and then everything went black. Before I could comprehend what I'd witnessed, a loud crash ricocheted through the basement, and the shadows converged, almost alive. They're coming! I shrieked, ripping my gaze from the photos. But when I turned to grab my mother and Greg, I felt the ground shift beneath us, the darkness awakening with a sinister gaze, lurching forward as reality twisted. Darkness engulfed me and suddenly I was alone. Greg. Mom. My voice echoed, panic slicing through air as I called out, frantically searching for them in the black void. But there was only silence. And the shadows prowling around me. Had we awakened something that shouldn't have been? Had we crossed a line that now sealed our fate? As I stood there, heart racing, a new presence loomed larger in the darkness, an unmistakable, twisted figure. What had we unleashed? And would we survive its wrath? A chilling whisper brushed against my ear, sending tremors down my spine. I staggered back, heart hammering in my chest, eyes darting around for any sign of Greg or my mother. The gelid air coiled around my legs like icy fingers, binding me to the spot. I could still feel the shadows swirling a hypnotic dance that trapped my thoughts. Mia, a voice echoed softly, but it wasn't Greg or my mom. It was something darker, layered in malice, wrapped in a tone that sent anxious shivers coursing through my body. Join me, every instinct screamed to run, to flee from the encroaching tendrils of darkness. No, you don't belong here. I shouted at the shadows as if they could hear me, the resolve in my voice faltering suddenly. A faint light flickered to my right, barely perceptible at first. It grew into a warm glow engulfing an unseen figure. As I squinted into the brightness, the twisted silhouette of a man emerged from the shadows. His features were indistinct, a grotesque jumble of shapes and shades. The air thickened, suffocating my senses with unease. Do you remember? He hissed, the words flowing like dark honey. You called forth my presence, and now we have business. The ground quaked slightly beneath me, reverberating with every syllable he uttered. I gritted my teeth, sweat beading on my brow. No, I didn't call you. I want nothing to do with you. My voice cracked, fear warping my courage. The figure's mouth twisted into a leering smile, his eyes burning pools of malevolence. The past doesn't let go so easily. You will take responsibility for what you've disturbed. It's too late. Without warning, the basement walls seemed to shimmer, revealing fleeting glimpses of the family reunion I had seen in the photograph, people laughing, the storm thundering outside, innocence masked with a hint of tragedy. They were trapped in cycles like puppets tied to strings, dancing to the whims of something horrible. Dread settled in my stomach like a lead weight. Greg. I yelled again, my voice swallowed by the oppressive silence. I felt panic rising, nausea churning within me. I couldn't fight this alone. Suddenly, the shadows quaked, almost as if responding to my fear. I stumbled forward, desperate to escape the lurking entity, guided only by the fading echoes of my brother's voice. Mia! We're here! I believed I heard him. Instinctively moving toward it like a moth drawn to flame, I sprinted through the darkness, arms flailing as the weight of my surroundings pressed closer. Just as I was about to give in to despair, I burst through an unseen barrier and found myself back in that dingy room where the trapdoor lay open. And there they were, my mother, pale as death, clinging to the edge of the trapdoor, and Greg, looking disheveled yet determined. Mia! Don't, he began, but was cut off as the shadows slithered closer, a menacing dance around our feet. But it wasn't just the shadows that grew bolder. I realized we were no longer just facing the dark, the very foundation beneath us began to tremble, the walls pulsing with a life of their own. Where are we? My mother gasped, the reality setting in like quicksand, threatening to consume us. Mom, I'm not sure. That thing wanted something. I shouted, my heart racing. We need to figure out what it is or we'll never be free. But just then, the light flickered again, and the ominous figure reappeared behind us, slightly closer, its grin widening. You think you can escape? You're tied to us now, bound by blood. A surge of panic shot through me, an ethereal connection bound us to the shadows. As I scanned our surroundings for a possible escape, the darkness twisted, ready to close in. I felt the weight of my history, my family's secrets bearing down on me. Whatever it is, we need to face it together. Greg urged, his voice a mix of fear and determination, but before I could respond, a deafening crash erupted from above, the ceiling fracturing as light spilled in, illuminating the figure cloaked and shadowed. We had awakened a horror that wouldn't be ignored. Run! My mother screamed, but chaos reigned, shards of wood and dust raining down as hope slipped through my fingers, threatened by the darkness reclaiming what it wanted. In the maelstrom of confusion, I felt myself being drawn away from my family, and dread tightened its grip around my heart. What had been unleashed beneath our feet? Would we ever reclaim our lives? Or were we destined to be ensnared forever in the grip of darkness? Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, the wicked grin returned, and it whispered, "This is just the beginning." The darkness surged forward, a flood of despair that swallowed the space around us. I barely registered Greg's grip tightening on my arm, his nails digging in as we stumbled, propelled by instinct alone. "Mia, focus!" he shouted, desperation tinged with urgency. The figure loomed larger behind us, a shadow sewn into the fabric of our reality. Each step we took felt heavier, as if the world wanted to drag us back into its oppressive folds. My heart pounded against my ribcage, drowning out all but the whispers of the figure. He seemed to pulsate, a heartbeat of darkness that matched the chaos. "Don't let it separate us," I cried, but my words barely broke the thundering noise in my ears. I could see the trapdoor, the only escape route, threatening to close, shadows lapping hungrily at its edges. Just as we neared the trapdoor, a freezing gust hit us, tearing at our clothes and forcing us to skid to a halt. The silhouette seemed to swell with power, a vortex of night wrapping around us like a serpent. "You're not escaping. Your family belongs to me now." The growl was both a promise and a curse, echoing with the power of ages. Greg's eyes blazed with determination. "It's lying, Mia. We have to push through." He suddenly charged forward, pulling me along. His bravery mixed with my fear, a volatile combination. We barreled toward the trapdoor but were met with a wall of darkness, thick and impenetrable. "No!" I yelled, panic crackling in my throat. The shadows tightened around us, wrapping me in cold tendrils. I was gasping for breath now, each pulse of fear making it harder to think. Thoughts spiraled. What business did the shadow want? Did it own us because of our lineage, or was it more personal? "Look around," my mother shouted, her voice straining against the chaos. "Remember the pictures. This has happened before." Her words hit me with a weight that made me stagger. The family reunion photos we had found were a piece of a bigger puzzle. This wasn't just our lives. It was our family's cursed history, unfurling before us like the dark bowels of the earth. I met Greg's gaze, and he nodded, understanding dawning between us. If we could remember, perhaps we could unearth the truth buried deep within the shadows. I took a deep breath. "The past," I muttered. "It wants us to relive it. Then we take control." Greg suggested, voice steadier now. This time we changed the ending. With renewed resolve we stood together, feet planted on the trembling ground. "You may take our history," I declared, "but you will not claim our future." The figure hissed, its form flickering as the darkness recoiled, almost offended. "You think you can change fate? It is written in blood." But in that very moment something shifted. The air around us began to pulse with energy, thickening like fog, a warmth spreading from our joined hands. It felt almost protective, as if we were igniting a spark amid the gloom. "Mia, focus," Greg urged again, his grip reassuring. I could feel the stirrings of something from within, a glimmer of ancient hope woven into our bloodline. The figure roared, writhing as the shadows quaked. Bolts of light erupted from our hands, blinding against the darkness. "No!" it screeched, desperation coursing through its voice. The walls echoed, rattling as if the very foundation of our lineage trembled before the truth. As the darkness began to unravel, it revealed glimpses of our memories' secrets, laughter, sorrow, and with each flash, I felt more and more empowered. We had the strength to redefine this curse, but just as we thought we were breaking free, the figure lunged, piercing the whirl of light, its icy breath chilling me to the bone. "You cannot escape the binds of blood." A splintering crack shattered through the air, the shadows colliding with our newfound light in a cataclysmic explosion. And then silence. I blinked, tasting dust in the air. My heart pounded. Had we succeeded? Or had we unleashed a fate worse than we ever imagined? As the particles settled, a strange glow emerged from the center of where the figure stood, a rift swirling with colors I'd never seen before. What lay beyond that shimmering veil? "Greg," I whispered, each word slower than the last. "What did we just do?" I felt him inch closer, uncertainty shadowing his eyes. But before he could answer, the opening pulsed like a heartbeat, and a voice emerged, resonating inside my mind. Welcome to the truth of your bloodline. The fear mounted as I realized we were about to uncover something far more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. What awaited us on the other side? The light flickered and danced before us, a strange aurora that cast our shadows against the jagged walls. I could see Greg's face, a mix of determination and dread woven into his features. The air felt electric, buzzing with an energy I couldn't wrap my head around. "Are you ready, Mia?" he asked, his voice tight with uncertainty. I nodded, though my heart raced like a wild bird trapped in a cage. Ready as I'll ever be. We stepped forward, hand in hand, toward the shimmering rift that pulsed with an almost living rhythm. The whispers of the shadow figure faded behind us, replaced by a chorus of voices familiar, yet distant. Memories? Secrets? I held my breath, bracing myself for whatever lay ahead as we entered the rift. The light enveloped us like a warm embrace and then vanished. We stood in a space that felt alive. It shimmered and shifted like sand underfoot, swirling with colors that painted the world around us. Every shade seemed to carry a memory, a hint of our familial past. Greg began, but as he turned to me, his voice faltered. Before us was a scene, or rather, a collection of scenes playing out like a movie. I saw a younger version of my mother, laughing with a group of people I didn't recognize. They shared a joy that felt foreign, yet it sparked a flicker of warmth in my chest. Then it shifted again. The shadowy figure loomed in the corner, lurking just out of sight. I recoiled. "It's watching us." "It's more than that," Greg said, squinting at the flickering images. "It's feeding on our memories." Chills gripped me as the realization settled in. The past wasn't just a series of events. It was a living thing that thrived on our pain and happiness alike. With every image that flashed before our eyes, the dark weight of history pressed down on us. There were betrayals, regrets, and little victories, each one tied to the shadow lurking in the background. The truth was unwinding at our feet, a thread that threatened to pull us back into the darkness. "Do you see them?" Greg pointed to a scene where my parents stood before a fireplace, a small tattered book in hand. My father's brows knit with concern, while my mother looked worried yet determined. I had never seen this moment before. "Mom never talked about it," I whispered. A knot formed in my throat. What were they doing? As if answering my question, the scene morphed. The book in my mother's hands glowed, and the whispers crescendoed, turning into a cacophony. The words faded in and out, but I could make out snippets: the curse, secrets, sacrifice. The room shifted again, revealing faces I had never seen. They glared at me with eyes filled with regret, pain, and something else, fear. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. These were my ancestors. They had fought this darkness before, and the echoes of their battles resonated through the very air around me. "Maybe they didn't overcome it," I murmured, my heart pounding. "Maybe that's why it still haunts us." Greg held my gaze, the fire igniting in his determination. "Then we have to change that. We have to break the cycle." Before I could respond, the room quaked violently. The images jumbled as the shadow figure roared, breaking through the edges of our memories. "You imagine you can rewrite it?" It growled, its voice a low growl that sent shivers through my body. "You are nothing but dust in the wind of time." The reality twisted, and the scenes clashed around us. I felt Greg's grip tighten. "Stay with me. Don't let go," I yelled, but the powerful force of the figure's presence threatened to rip us apart. The air grew thick with despair. The faces of our ancestors twisted in agony, caught in the cycle and dragging us down with them. "Mia, focus," Greg shouted, his eyes wide, holding up the flickering memories around us. I grasped onto one, a moment of laughter, the warmth of family, and I sent out a beam of light, ripping through the chaos. "We can break free." The energy surged through me, but as it did, the shadow figure lunged. "You cannot escape the past." I felt the ground beneath us quake with fury. Streets paved with memories began to crumble. "Do you see what you unleash?" The voice echoed, reverberating in my bones. I had only seconds. I could either let our family's past consume us or shatter the curse for good. But as I gathered my energy to strike, I glimpsed a final image before us, a glimmer of hope amid the void. "Greg," I cried, "it's now or never." What would happen if we succeeded? Or if we failed? Would we finally close this dark chapter? Or would it consume everything we loved? As the darkness lunged again, time seemed to slow, and I felt the choice simmering in my veins. But that flicker of hope was still there, lingering between life and death, love and despair. And just as I thought I could seize it, a blinding flash erupted, swallowing everything. What awaited us when the light faded? Was it freedom or something far more sinister? The light made my eyes sting as it receded, leaving only a phantom glow in its wake. I blinked furiously, struggling to adjust to the sudden darkness. The air felt different, heavy, like the world had been turned upside down. Mia! Greg's voice pierced through the haze, filled with urgency. I turned and my breath hitched at the sight before us. We stood in a room that resembled our ancestral home, yet everything felt just slightly off. The familiar textures of wood and fabric swirled in an unsettling blend of reality and illusion. Shadows danced across the walls, weaving in and out of my vision like whispers in the night. The pervasive feeling of being watched returned, a suffocating sensation that coiled tightly around my chest. "We're still here," I breathed, feeling panic rise. "But this isn't right." Greg's face was pale, his brow furrowed in deep concentration. "We've entered another memory, one that feels closer somehow." As he spoke, the room shimmered and flickered like static on an old television set. Then it solidified around us, bringing forth vivid images of our family gathered near the hearth. Everyone was laughing, an exuberant scene straight from some long-forgotten holiday gathering. I felt the warmth seep into my bones, but it was fleeting, twisted by something dark lurking underneath. "Look," Greg pointed, his voice trembling. "That's us." I leaned closer to catch the sight of a much younger version of me, beaming with a sense of innocence I'd long lost. But then I noticed it, the shadow, stretching ominously behind me in the corner. It pulsed like a heart, growing with every jubilant laugh that filled the air. No, it's feeding off their joy," I stammered, my skin prickling with dread. The room warped around us, becoming a nightmarish reflection of what was once a cherished memory. The laughter turned into shrill screeches, faces twisted in horror, eyes wide with despair. It was like watching a horror film of our lives playing out with the sound turned way up. "It wants our memories, our happiness," Greg shouted, his grip tightening on my arm. "We can't let it." "But how?" The dread clawed at the edges of my mind, squeezing my consciousness. "What do we do?" I could hardly articulate my fear. "It's still a memory. We can fight back." He spun toward the flickering heart of darkness festering behind our past selves. With a surge of determination, I pressed forward, channeling the laughter I once felt into a force that could shatter the darkness surrounding us. "Mia!" Greg called again. There was something in his voice, desperation, that I turned to him, feeling the power building inside me. "I have to try." As I gathered my light, memories flooded back, stronger and purer. I reached into the depths of my heart, seeking that spark of joy from the gathered family. The past rolled out before me like a scroll, colorful and alive. "Come with me," Greg yelled, the sound of his voice rallying me. "We have to do this together." Our hands clasped tightly, we pushed the light forward, shoving against the darkness that loomed. It screeched and howled, echoing in my ears, that insistent voice striking deep with fear. "You can't fight me." The ground trembled, the walls rippling like a disturbed ocean. "Keep pushing," Greg shouted, his voice a beacon amid the chaos. With one last desperate surge, we channeled every laugh, every moment of family joy we could conjure. The darkness quaked, its grip faltering. But just as it seemed we would break through, the shadow unleashed a furious roar, and I felt something cold grip my heart, a chilling panic. "Mia!" "No!" Greg called, and suddenly I was pulled away from him. Torn from the warmth of his presence, I stumbled backward, hitting the floor hard. The room spun violently, images and voices crashing around me. The laughter faded, replaced by eerie silence. As everything darkened, I caught a glimmer of light, a fragile sliver, bright against the encroaching shadows. "Mia!" Greg's voice came from the distance, fading into a scream. I reached out, desperate to grasp onto anything. What would happen if the light died? Was I even still in this battle, or had I become another lost memory? As the darkness swallowed me whole, questions surged in my mind. Could I find my brother again? Would he remember me? But then, a new whisper beckoned in the silence, chilling and intrigue-fueled. Who will remember if they never truly existed? My heart raced. What awaited me in this suffocating void? And would I ever find Greg again? As the shadows closed in, suffocating and relentless, a jolt of defiance surged through me. I couldn't let Greg down. I had to find him, to reign in the light that flickered so close yet felt impossibly far. With every ounce of spirit left in me, I pushed back against the darkness wrapping around my throat like a noose. Mia! Greg's voice echoed faintly through the abyss, igniting sparks of determination in my heart. I could almost see him trapped but unyielding. He had always been the courageous one, the one who stood up for what was right, and now I had to match his strength. Hold on, Greg. My voice reverberated, desperation stretching the sound into a thin thread of hope. I'm coming. My heart raced with each step into the creeping darkness, every beat a reminder of everything at stake, the memories we needed to reclaim, the love that bound us, and the terror threatening to snatch it all away. As I moved deeper, I felt a shift. The shadows pulsed, wavering slightly as if recoiling from my newfound resolve. You will not take us, I shouted, willing every ounce of my spirit into the air, crafting a shield against the obsidian malaise surrounding me. Suddenly flares of warm memories erupted within me, a family gathering, laughter echoing like bells, the comfort of shared meals and stories. You cannot drain our joy, I cried again, forcing my memories into the dark, allowing the warmth to merge with the cold around me. And that moment, I wished for Greg to feel my presence, my strength, to know he wasn't alone. The pulse of warmth continued to spread, reverberating throughout the gloom. The shadows writhed as if struggling against a powerful tide. I could finally see their distortions, feeling emboldened by every flicker of light I conjured. Focus! I shouted toward the heart of the shadows, fueling my spirit with every cherished moment, pouring forth memories of joy, of love, and of unbreakable bonds. Then, as the ambience shifted, I felt the chilling grip of despair loosen its hold. The darkness began to tremble, creeping back momentarily as if sensing the inevitability of defeat. No, the voice of the shadow figure bellowed, its tone filled with fury. You cannot escape your past. But I was tired of running, tired of being afraid. I could almost feel the ethereal connection between Greg and me, threading through the dark chasm, binding us to our roots. Remember, I shouted, this time with more conviction. Remember who you are. We're a family. Greg, I'm here. The shadows recoiled again, wavering in that soft voice that curled around my senses like smoke. And there was a flash of light? A silhouette forming within the darkness? Greg! I screamed, feeling the pull of his presence. Don't give in, Mia. He shouted. We can do this. Suddenly a wave of energy surged from my heart, erupting into a radiant ball of color, illuminating the void. It flooded the space between us, and the shadows shrieked, dissipating into nothingness, unable to withstand the brilliance of our combined memories. As the light coalesced, Greg's figure appeared, his eyes wide with belief and determination. Together! He exclaimed, rushing toward me. I grasped his hand tightly, feeling the warmth surge through us, a tether against the darkness. We won, let it take us. I echoed fiercely. We rewrite our story, brother. In unison we poured out all the joy, love, and laughter, bending the shadow's grip. The figure that haunted our memories dissolved into wisps of vapor, lost in the brightness we wielded. You will not own us, we proclaimed in chorus, embodying the strength of our family, our heritage, and something far more profound than darkness. With a final surge of unity, the darkness shattered into a million fragments, the sharp edges softening, melting away into the light. Our home materialized around us, the familiar warmth of our dining room, the table still set for our once terrifying dinner. The air was clear, crisp, filled with possibility. We stood together, breathless but alive, an electric energy crackling as reality settled back into place. Did we really do it? Greg whispered, disbelief painted across his face. I met his gaze, tears of relief and joy spilling from my eyes. I think we did. Our family gathered around us, unharmed and warm, enveloping us in their loving embrace. Shadows were just shadows now, remnants of the night that had threatened to consume us. We're safe, Greg whispered, the urgency of the moment slipping away. We faced it together. As the evening unfolded, laughter filled the air like music. Familiar faces sparkled with life, and for the first time in ages, I felt the past fade gently away, no longer burdensome but a reminder of our resilience. And that moment, I knew that our bond was unbreakable. We had conquered the dark together, and no shadow could drag us back. And just like that, the darkness faded, replaced by an unyielding light of hope and renewal. Hold on to the joy you discovered, thrive in it. If you enjoyed this thrilling journey, you need to subscribe now to our channel. This is the moment to show your support for more exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now, it makes all the difference to keep the algorithm happy. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories, because I want to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this conclusion. Your voice matters, and together we can bring more amazing adventures to life.